Hey everyone, welcome to Generative Geek. Today's video is about how can you set up your environment for GenAI development. In future videos, we are going to go straight into generative AI coding. But today, the agenda is that, we help you get your environment right? The coding environment right. For that, I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. If you don't have Visual Studio Code, I highly recommend you go to code.visualstudio.com and install Visual Studio Code. I'm using a Mac, so I am on a stable build of Mac. But if you're on a Windows or any other OS, download relevant builds for your OS. Once the Visual Studio Code is installed, and let me just put the link in case if you don't have, download from this. Right, once you have this installed, open it and you will see a lot of extensions. Like, this is the link with a lot of, you see some sort of a brick kind of an extension, brick kind of icons. These are basically the blocks, right? The blocks are represent extensions. So I love few extensions which I highly recommend you install. Like, the first is Python. Now, when you search for Python in the extension marketplace, you will find a lot of them. The key is that you install the one that comes from Microsoft, right? So Microsoft, the one that Microsoft has developed, that is the one you need to install. I really love, I do a lot of notebook stuff, and we'll be doing in future videos. So Jupyter extension is the other one, again by Microsoft, that you should install. There is an extension called GitLens. Now GitLens really turbocharges your Git, right? And we'll see in future videos how it helps. So install GitLens, right? If you have GitHub Copilot, it's a paid offering, but really helpful if you're a developer. I strongly recommend you get your hands on it. GitHub Copilot, we'll see in future videos how it really helps us speeden up our coding. So GitHub Copilot is again other extension that I really like, right? So you can go about and install these extensions. Once your extensions are done and your Visual Studio Code is installed and your extensions are installed, you will be in a much better place. Now, if you have like an environment where you have never done much of Python coding, you probably might be on an older version of Python. Now, what is recommended is, if you want to do these GenAI stuff, because these are libraries built on latest versions of Python, my recommendation is move to something like a Python 3.10. So the easiest way is uh, go to python.org and go to downloads, all releases. You can basically just click on the one that you really want. Like, if I'm on a Mac OS and I say, hey, you know what, let me install Python 3.10.14, I can click on it, right? I already have the latest, not the latest, but 3.11 installed, and I prefer to be on it right now. So, but if you want, you can install 3.10, 3.11, or 3.12, whichever you wish to be on, right? So upgrade Python before we move to the next step. The next step is, what we'll do is we'll just now get started with creating an environment. Now, what is an environment? An environment is basically some sort of a shell or a container which will contain all your libraries and dependencies. You might be like, think of yourself on a production environment. You're working on many different projects, right? If you're working on different projects, each project might need a different version of a library, right? The library that connects to your database, the library that connects to OpenAI, the library that connects to any other thing that you are working on. The versions play a big role here. Now, if you do like a central install of these libraries and you upgrade the library, it'll be upgraded for all your projects. Now, so that's the thing. So what you want to really do is not install at a central place, but rather install it in a way that you have these sandboxed environments. So the sandboxed environments, if some library is broken, only that project is broken, not like your entire thing gets broken, right? So the way to do it is, on a Mac, press Command Shift P, and when it opens, select type Python select interpreter, right? When you do that, Python select interpreter, it'll ask you, hey, you know what, which interpreter should I select? Now I have 3.11 and 3.9 installed on my system, so it's giving me these two options, but I don't want either of these two, right? You know, what I want is I want to create a container or a sandbox like I mentioned earlier. So I'll say, hey, create a virtual environment. Now, this is the venv. There are two ways it gives me, venv and conda. I'll select venv for now. In a future video, we'll do conda as well. Now, once you select that, it says, hey, you know what, but beneath it, which Python do you want to use? 3.11 or 3.9? And here I'll select 3.11, right? So it's now building it. Following environment is selected. I'll go to terminal. Yeah, the way to go to terminal is go, so there are two ways. One is shift command, sorry, control shift and the tilde. Either do that or basically just go to terminal menu and say, hey, new terminal. Now when you do that new terminal, if you see .venv here, right, you know, that's the environment we selected. If you look at command shift p, select interpreter, now you are getting three environments here. Earlier we were getting only two, because now we have a venv creator, right? It's saying, hey, this is the one that is recommended, right? So once you do that, you can see venv created. That means now this environment is ready, right? You know, so the environment is ready doesn't mean we are ready, right? So the environment is ready, that shell, that sandbox is ready. And the easiest way to test is, let us say, we'll create a sample file called app.py, and I'm just trying to show you how do you know whether a certain library is working or not working, right? You know, so let's just say I say import OpenAI, right? Import Langchain, um, import sys, import requests. Now, and I'll just save this file, right? You know, I'll come back to my terminal and say Python app.py. Now, the first thing it says is, hey, module not found, OpenAI. So it says, hey, and you don't even probably need to do that much. Visual Studio Code itself is telling you that there's a problem. When you go into it, it says import OpenAI could not be resolved. And this is the benefit of installing the extensions that we install, right? You know, so it's like it's a missing import. It's like, hey, you know what? I don't know what do you mean by LangChain, right? So this is where we are. So the easiest way to solve for it is we'll create a file called requirements.txt, and we'll start typing out all the libraries we want, like, you know, OpenAI, LangChain, and let's just see what else, right? You know, so the best way is when you want to learn something, you go to their website, right? You know, so let's just go to langchain.com. And these are the libraries which basically LangChain is a very popular tool. I'll get into, you know, how we have to use it. Anthropic is Claude. So yeah, okay, we'll install LangChain hyphen Anthropic. Uh, LangChain has something called LangChain hyphen OpenAI as well. If you want to check whether something like that exists, you can go to LangChain OpenAI, LangChain hyphen OpenAI. They probably also have something for Google. So yeah, so LangChain hyphen Google hyphen Gen AI. So that's the name of the library. And Google Gemini also has a library that we should install, like, you know, because in most of the future courses I'll also use their library, right? So Google Generative AI. So what we'll do is we'll install these. And another library that I really like is requests. It makes calls to the internet. uh, so once you have this, come back to your terminal and say pip install -r means recursive requirements.txt. So we wrote down all the libraries that we want for now, right? You know, and this is not the final list, but this is the list that we want to get started with. So just write pip install -r requirements.txt, press enter. What it'll do is it'll go through this file and it'll start collecting all these libraries from various sources, right? You know, so it has an internal mechanism where it knows, hey, where do I need to look for? So it'll look for LangChain in a certain repository. If it finds LangChain, it will install that, right? You know, if it doesn't find, it'll say, hey, you know what? I don't know what you mean by LangChain. So now we ended with no errors. So that means everything is installed. But how do we test that, right? So the easiest way to test it is go back to your app.py and you see all those underlines which Pylance was doing, which is the extension. That extension got automatically installed when you installed the Python extension by Microsoft, right? So that got automatically installed. So now one of the other easiest ways, just say python main.py, like, sorry, app.py. This is what we did earlier. And you see, this time there was no error. But now, let's just say if you want to test out, there's a library called cbon, and we go out and say, hey, you know what, let's import cbon. And now, if I do this, it'll say, hey, you know what, I don't know what you mean by cbon. And that Visual Studio Code Pylance is also telling you here by through an underline, right? So now what you want, if you want to really use cbon, come here and say, hey, you know what, cbon, right? And then again, pip install -r requirements.txt, and it'll install cbon, right? And cbon might have other dependencies like matplotlib and pandas and whatnot, right? So if it has, it'll install all those. Yeah, and yeah, it has. So yeah, it's going to take a little while, 10 more seconds. Um, but this is how it is. Like, each library has its own dependencies. So when you install a library, it will also install its dependencies, and that in a way it's a good thing, right? Because you get a lot of these libraries which get installed that way, right? So yeah, so this is done. Um, and now if you go to app.py, you will see that that underline is gone, right? So our environment is ready, and we have installed all the necessary libraries. In a way, now you are ready to get started, right? So this was it, guys. I hope you really enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe or click the like button. It gives me a lot of motivation and to create more videos for you for future. Thank you so much.